Welcome, everybody. We're happy to have you back here in the Big Book Roundtable of the RICO 12 family of recovery resources. As you may know, we are a resource for anyone, anywhere, regardless of your addiction, your affliction, your anonism, your place in life. We are here to help you as we run through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and apply these things into what what life really is, and to help see us help us see things through a new perspective and really open our eyes. My name is Justin B. I am an addict. I am living in the miracle of one day at a time recovery, and just grateful to be here around this virtual roundtable with David G and Nikki M, two of my favorite people and most influential people in my own walk of recovery. So let's take just a minute and have each of them introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about what's happening in their lives. We're going to start with Nikki today. Nikki, why don't you kick us off?
Well, hi, everybody, and I'm Nikki M., and I'm, according to my Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm an intelligent agent spearhead and a loving child of God. And I'm here with, again, Justin said it, two of my favorite people because they're my teachers. Like, these two guys are my sponsors, but there's no official titles. They don't know it. Now they do. And spring's in the air. I've got some tulips here that are just stunning. The colors are magical and mystical. And before we got to record today, I even found time for the hot tub. So it's a good day in Toronto, Canada. Okay. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for being here, Nikki. David, you're up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Justin, for your service. Nikki, good to see you. Love you, sister. I'm David Green. I'm an alcoholic addict of many sorts, living in Oklahoma in the USA. Recovered by the grace of God. I've a sobriety date in Alcoholics Anonymous of August 8th, 1994. And I say that every time because I really don't want to forget that. For so long, I just kind of treated that like it was no big deal. That's a damn big deal for a guy like me to be sober for that long without alcohol and drugs. I'm crazier than hell without them, but with this solution, I'm recovered. I live a very good life. And more importantly, I'm so grateful to be here with two of my favorite people as well, and to share experience, strength, and hope, especially in this chapter here. These are the lost chapters in Alcoholics Anonymous, Sexaholics Anonymous, any Anonymous. People just don't read this. But just remember, these are the principles that we live by after we've had a spiritual experience as the result of the steps. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, David. So we got Nikki from Toronto, David from Oklahoma, and I'm here in Spokane, Washington, in a virtual triangle across North America, and we're happy to come from all different backgrounds of life, experience, but having a common problem with a common solution. And that's what we're doing as we dive through the Big Book here, is we're finding a common solution to our common problem. And I think it will work pretty much universally with anybody who will practice these principles. So we're picking up in chapter 8, to wives. And we're going to be on page 106, starting about the middle of the page. We have tried to hold the love, moving through page 107, about halfway through that page in the paragraph that ends in, here we go. We might have behaved differently. So grab your big books, pens, highlighters, paper, take notes, and more importantly than just taking notes, put it into action. Because if you don't do what you know, it's not doing you or anybody else any good. So here we go. Let's dive into the reading. Once again, page 106. We have tried to hold the love of our children for their father. We have told small tots that father was sick, which was much nearer the truth than we realized. They struck the children, kicked out door panels, smashed treasured crockery, and ripped the keys out of pianos. In the midst of such pandemonium, they may have rushed out, threatening to live with the other woman forever. In desperation, we have even got tight ourselves, the drunk to end all drunks. The unexpected result was that our husbands seemed to like it. Perhaps at this point, we got a divorce and took the children home to father and mother. Then we were severely criticized by our husband's parents for desertion. Usually we did not leave. We stayed on and on. We finally sought employment ourselves as destitution faced us and our families. We began to seek medical advice as the sprees got closer together. The alarming physical and mental symptoms, the deepening pall of remorse, depression and inferiority had settled down on our loved ones. These things terrified and distracted us. As animals on a treadmill, We have patiently and wearily climbed, falling back in exhaustion after each futile effort to reach solid ground. Most of us had entered the final stage with this commitment to health resorts, sanitariums, hospitals, and jails. Sometimes there were screaming delirium and insanity. Death was often near. Under these conditions, we naturally made mistakes. Some of them rose out of ignorance of alcoholism. Sometimes we sensed dimly that we were dealing with sick men. Had we fully understood the nature of the alcoholic illness, we might have behaved differently. So we've got several paragraphs here to go through, and we're going to do that line by line. Today we're going to start with Nikki sharing her experience and thoughts on the lines that we've read. Nikki, go ahead and start us off, please.
Wow, there's just so much in here, but I'll do my best to skim through it because as David said, like these are the ignored chapters. These are this is the hidden juice that we've gotten and we've found discovered here. It's like the hidden text that they never put canonized into the Bible. Those are great. The Book of Thomas, that's another story for another day. We've tried to hold on to the love of our children. Remember, we're beyond human aid. So not only me, like that's me and my love addiction. For the love of my children, I can't stop. For the love of the children, your alcoholic mother, your alcoholic brother, husband can't stop. We have said, Father's sick. That's true. We're sick people. Remember, in order to get to page 106, we've gone through all the previous pages where we learned we are sick. We're sick. And that is the truth. We are sick. And I'm going deeper because I've been here 14 years, Justin, and I'm realizing this is intergenerational sickness. It goes real deep. And this is all the incomprehensible demoralization, everybody. This is where we get the incomprehensible demoralization. We, not just dad, because we're frustrated. The Anons, you are just as frustrated. You have no patience with your children. Not only is dad striking the children or screaming at them, you are too. Doors, smash crockery. I love this. I love that this is written in 1940. It's like, what the hell's crockery? Those are Auntie's good chinaware, Nikki. Okay, yeah, the crystalware, the good stuff, yeah. I mean, how many of us have done that? I'll never forget, like, I was so deep in my addiction, making a baby with a man I don't even know. You guys, like, that goes deep. I was a hardcore love addiction. I just took a guy, I need a baby, you're good looking, get in here. And when my child was 1 year old, I was in the corner screaming, and I was sober. This wasn't anybody else. This was me. Pandemonium. My line out says, yep, whale shit. Lived with other women. This is the codependence. Like, this is like, I always, like David said, I have a black book of if my husband or the man or my baby daddies aren't doing things right in my disease of alcoholism, I've got a bunch of people lined up that I can go to just in case he's too out of his mind or I'm too out of my mind. It's always just in case. You're not just hiding the liquor or hiding the lottery tickets or hiding the sugar in the cupboard. You're now hiding men, women, all that good stuff. And then I love this, the drunk to end all drunks. I learned at an early age how to use crystal meth and alcohol. I was a hardcore crystal meth user, so I qualify for all programs. I know our friend Justin's never tried drugs or alcohol, but I put that down. And once you pick up men and money, folks, there's nothing like snorting men and money. Crystal meth is child's play for me. So long story short, I would always join in. And then eventually I wouldn't because I had my own drug, my own thing to do. And then we get a divorce. Yeah, my mom's through. I have a lot of stepdads that I talked about in the last episode, along with a lot of names because my mom likes to have men adopt me. You know what I mean? I love this here too. My line out. This is all validation. Criticized by what other people think, and think of me. I'll just stay in a situation. I'll just hide my actions. I'll stay deep in my addiction, in my family disease of alcoholism, the lies. I will stay on in situations that are so sick and so painful for everybody, right? And I'll wind up destitute. It was by the grace of God. See, sometimes our addictions save us, and you can probably talk about that for another episode, David and Justin, because my addiction saved me or I would have killed myself. I say a lot of the time, even my stepdad, he lasted as long as he did because the alcohol saved him before he killed himself, or he would have done it a long time ago. So my sex and love addiction saved me from killing myself. I'll be honest, that's what happened there. Otherwise, I would have been dead. We began to ask medical advice. This is why we need to be armed with the facts about this disease. Because I'm walking around going, I'm depressed. He doesn't love me. I come from, my parents are alcoholics. I'm depressed. No, Nikki, you have the family disease of alcoholism. No medical attention is going to help you. You have a soul sickness, and I know that now. The alarming physical, mental symptoms, the deepening pall, remorse, depression. That is my progressive illness, everybody. That's an Anon's progressive illness, the mental, physical, the remorse, the self-obsession. It's never depression, it's self-obsession. The inferiority. This is my paycheck. That's my paycheck of living in the disease of alcoholism. Terrified, distracted. That's my paycheck. I'm an animal. I'm a defecating, fornicating monkey on a treadmill, on the wheel of misfortune. That's all I'm doing in the disease of alcoholism. I'm falling back into the futile. Like this is what we talk about. This is the disease of alcoholism, sober or not. I enter the final stages. This is where I get my Al-Anons. Are you here, Miss Codependent? Oh, I've never been to jail. That's my heroin addicted son. That's for David Green, not me. Well, bullshit, everybody. Here it is. You, fancy lady, you go to your resorts. You go to your eat, love, and pray. You travel around the world, barely avoiding. You're not caught. That's why you're not in jail, Miss Al-Anon. And you just want to die. Death near. That is your paycheck in the disease of alcoholism. Under these conditions, all the conditions we just talked about, we're going to make mistakes. Who's we? That's a type 3 Al-Anon, a type 3 alcoholism, ignorance of alcoholism. If you are not armed with the facts about alcoholism, I, self, me, we're dealing with sick people, sick families, intergenerational. So until you understand this disease, oh, it's going to be hard for you. But once I understood, I behave differently. I do behave differently. I'm armed with, I'm a child of God. I'm a woman of God. So I can behave differently. And you know what? When I start changing, I don't know if it was this episode or last episode. Yeah, it must have been last because David hasn't spoke, but he said a much more important demonstration. When I demonstrate this in my home, guess who also behaves differently? My mom, my children, Toby, my 4-pound barking dog. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. All right, man. I've got a good question for you. I'm excited to hear the answer to this. But before we get to that, David, walk us through this one and share us your point of view and your experience.
Yeah, absolutely, Justin. Nikki, thank you so much for your share. I always enjoy hearing how crazy you can get and don't have to have a damn thing in your body to do it. It's my kind of people. You know, I always tell when I speak at conferences live, I love outlaw women. You're an outlaw woman, Nikki, whether you know it or not. So perhaps at this point we got a divorce. No, not perhaps. We got one. Not only one, we got two, and was headed for three by the time this thing really took shape. And so, you know, the children, or where was it at? We started up above, didn't we? We tried to hold the love of our children for our father, for their father. Oh, how wonderful of that of you. Hell, you want to control my life and their life. Although we're not seeing any of that on the outer because all you can see is me running around acting like a maniac. Oh, poor Michelle, poor Patty, poor Deanna, you know, oh my God, those poor women. But come live in my home for a while. I always said, hell, if you live with women like that, you drink too. And, you know, it's just how it was. And so, yeah, we tried to hold the love of our children. And I talk a lot about the unseen defects in step 6 and 7. And when I ask somebody this, I'll say, hey, they're giving a talk on 6 and 7. They'll say, anybody got any question? I'm like, yeah, I got one. Tell me about the unseen defects in step 6 and 7. And none of them can ever answer that. They just can't. Well, this paragraph is really going to break it down for us. Here is the unseen defects. We have told small tots that their fathers were sick. Now, that's near the truth. So, are you lying a little bit? You ever been just a little bit pregnant? Have you drank just a little bit? Is that really a relapse? Our book says complete abstinence. So we see that dishonesty is going on there, even though they try to say, oh, we did it with a good motive and that was a very good idea. Still, either you're telling the truth or you're telling a lie. And so in this case, it's a lie. That's an unseen defect because they don't even know what's going on. So we struck the children. Anytime I've ever struck anybody in my life, it was out of one thing, and that was anger. And so there's the unseen defect. Kick down the door. I mean, I've done all of this stuff. I remember sitting in a bar with a guy one time, and I said, I'll be right back. And I grabbed a cab. I went all the way across town, beat on the door for her to let me in. She had thrown me out. She wouldn't let me in. I kicked the door down. They called the police. I ran back to the bar. And the guy said, hey, let's buy another round of drinks. And I'm like, no, man, that's going to cost, too much money. Or he wanted to go somewhere else. That's what it was. And I said, I don't want to go there because there's a cover charge to get in. And he said, so let me get this straight. You will spend $8 to go all the way across town for a cab fare to kick a door in, but you won't spend $3 to walk through one because it's an extra cover charge. Dude, you make absolutely no sense to me at all. And that's just the disease of how I lived. And so, we smash the crockery, rip out the piano keys. And in the midst of such pandemonium, they may have rushed out threatening. And, that's what I do. I bargain with them. You give me what I want, or I'll go live with the other woman forever. She understands me better than you do anyway. So this is what I'll do. So bargaining becomes the underlying defect there. But in desperation, we have got tied ourselves. I can remember a couple of my wives really trying to, all right, you want to drink? We'll drink. And we get drunk. And man, I just loved it. I just loved what was going on. We get up the next morning, I'd be like, let's go again. And they're like, hell no, I don't want any more of that. I'm sick. I'm so sick. And I'm like, crap. I was really liking it up to this point, but now you want to quit. So this chapter really is to the family member what the doctor's opinion is to the alcoholic. It really is. It explains the allergy, the obsession of the mind in a way that you don't have to have anything in your body for this to happen. I tell guys all the time, they're like, I don't suffer from the allergy. I'm like, really? You told me that you watched porn and acted out. Did that start with a thought or did it not? And once that thought, you took action based upon that thought, did that become something you was absolutely unable to stop doing? And they're like, well, yeah, well, that's what the physical allergy is, damn it. Once you start, you cannot stop, then that's what the physical allergy is. So perhaps at this point we got a divorce. And like I said, I've had 2 and was headed for 3. There were severely criticized by our husband's parents. My mom, hell, that's just the way she is. She's untreated. She didn't only criticize me. She criticized her and everybody else around. It's just how she was. But usually, you guys don't leave. And we love that as alcoholics. Trust me, we know you're not going to leave. We know in our heart of hearts you're not going to leave. So don't sit around and play victim and play a target when you're not willing to step out, take the children away, say, damn it, I told you one more time was one more time, and today I'm leaving for good. So, if you're going to say those things, do those things, because otherwise we know, and we will continue to trample on you as alcoholics and addicts, I promise you. So it's not because we hate you, it's because you're easy targets. So we stayed on and on. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Yeah, the insanity runs both ways, don't it? Finally sought employments ourselves as that destitution faced us and our families. Yeah, I can fix him. I'll get a job. I'll pay the bills. I'll show him who's the boss around here. I don't give a shit. I like you're doing that. Just, I'll stay home and drink while you work. Remember Bill's wife in his story, and began to work at a department store and, coming home to find me drunk. I mean, he talks about that over and over. So we begin to ask medical advice. Remember that she did that with Dr. Silkworth as the sprees got closer. The alarming physical because of the allergy, the mental because of the obsession, these symptoms, the deepening pull of remorse. This is what I suffer from, depression and inferiority. And then it'll go the other way. Hell, I'm superior to all of you guys. I'm not depressed. You are, and I'll beat you if you don't fall in line with me. And that shit just settles down on me, and it's just terrifying. It's distracting. And like Nikki said, I'm an animal that runs on a treadmill. I'm like a dog that chases his tail. It's not going anywhere. I'm never going to catch it, but I think I am. And so as wives, they say we patiently and wearily climb back, falling back in exhaustion after each. Why would you do that? If you're not as sick as I am and you're wanting to convince everybody of that, you better find recovery and go another route, because as long as you're doing this crap right here, you're just as sick as I am. I promise you. My disease has got a hold of you in such a way. And my wife will tell you today, because of what happened in 2019 when I got fully discovered for lust and sexual acting out, she will tell you today there were things inside of myself that I absolutely had to come to grips with. And one of the things is David is not my be-all, end-all. He is not God, and neither am I. Today, I'm taking a guy through the traditions right now, and we're coming up on tradition 2. And tradition 2 is a loving God and an ultimate authority as he may express himself in our group conscious. Well, my group is her. And if there's but one ultimate authority, it's not Patty, it's not David. It's a loving God as he expresses himself in this marriage, because that's my group. And today we're on a different basis with all of that. So let's go back to the book. Most of us has entered this final stage of this commitment with health resorts. Remember Bill? Hell, he runs to Canada to overtake Walter Hagen. Sanitariums, hospitals. He was back to hospital. This happened to me. I can remember being pretty young, and I was taken in for chronic liver illness. My liver was shot as I was a very young man. And jail, don't even get me started on that story. I've been to jail more times than most people have been alive, and more years than most people have been alive. And so, but I was in this hospital, and it was a detox center in those old days in the Indian Nation Hospital here in Oklahoma, because I have free health care. I went there. And so the guy said, you know what? I want you to walk down on that other wing. And he said, I want you to look inside that room, and I want you to see your future. And so I thought, I don't know about that. So later that night, I was bored. I was laying there restless, irritable, and discontent. And I got up and I walked down. And they really they just had like a curtain that separated these old men. And you could hear moaning, and you could hear crying, and you could hear groaning. And they were laying there with livers hanging out over their waistline. And they were yellow in the face, and their eyes was bloodshot red, and they were dying. They were absolutely dying from alcoholism. And I looked at those poor men and thought, you know what? I will never be like them poor bastards ever in my life. And I walked away, and I drank another 7, 8 to 10 years after that. So the screaming, the delirium, the insanity, I seen it in that room that night. I saw death. I saw it. And it was near even for me at that time, and I didn't even really know it. This thing is so baffling. It will kill you, making you think it's somebody else's fault. So, but this sentence always kills me. Under these conditions, we naturally made mistakes. No shit. That's natural for you to make a mistake, but when I make one, it's because I'm a drunk, I'm no good, I'm a drug addict, I'm a whore, I'm this, I'm that. But you naturally made a few mistakes, huh? So, but some of them rose out of the ignorance of alcoholism. And real quick, I want to finish up here. But page 20 in the book, way back, talks to us about this. If you look at about the third paragraph down, it said, now these are commonplace observations which we hear on drinkers all the time. People that don't really have or understand this illness, the back of them is a world of ignorance and misunderstanding. We see that these expressions refer to people whose reactions are very different from ours. And so, yeah, you naturally make mistakes. Had we fully understood the nature of the alcoholic illness, and not many people do, even people in the room today, I can ask you, tell me the nature of your alcoholic, sex addict, Al-Anon. Tell me the nature of your illness. And if you can't do that, then you might ought to revisit step 1. Then you might have behaved differently. I know I would have. So good chapter, good stuff. Really glad to be here. Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, David. And I'm really glad to be going through this with an actual person that came into the rooms because of Al-Anonism. Because, so easily as somebody who is not has not attended many Anon meetings. I probably could and should at some point, but it's so easy for me to say, you know what? I'm recovering. I'm recovered. my loved one or the loved one of someone that I'm working with is not working their program, it's so easy for me to point the finger and start blaming and things like that to the other person. But Nikki, I'm glad you're here. And I want to ask you a question about something you said. You said, this is my paycheck. And it was after you went through the deepening pall of remorse, the alarming mental and physical symptoms, depression and inferiority. These are my paycheck. Talk about what that means as an anon, an Al-Anon. What does that mean to have a paycheck of those things?
That's a great question. And I remember when I wrote that down, Cameron, my sponsor, Cameron F., he's been on many Rico 12 podcasts. I called him up and I said, my sponsee, this was about my sponsee, wasn't doing what I wanted. And he pulled me over and he took me line by line through this chapter. And he said, this is your paycheck because you are, again, I'm trying to control people. I was trying to control my sponsee. I was trying to control someone or something. So I was having physical symptoms again. I see, this is written to us. We began, because I'm having alarming physical and mental symptoms, not my sponsee, not my sick alcoholic family, not my children, because go deeper. This goes deep. My daughter's not an alcoholic, which left untreated, she might be. She's waking up, and you and I, well, we had her on the podcast where she's waking up. She admitted her own addictions. And so the deep pulling of remorse, I'm just living in guilt and shame. This is my paycheck when I don't do what the book says. Now, I want to go deep here. Al-Anon, because that's my first program. I walked in 14 years ago, hysterical, because the man, I didn't even love him. I was just in my deep addiction of getting under someone to get over somebody. He was just a get over guy. And he wasn't doing and doing what I said. And I'll never forget when I walked in there and I realized I'm the problem, not him. I'm the problem. And I'll never forget when I got my big resentment towards Al-Anon, because the AA book is not literature approved. It's not literature approved. In Al-Anon, I couldn't bring my big book, and I had to start a big book Al-Anon meeting. I couldn't bring the big book in. And tradition 5 of the tradition 5 of Al-Anon says in italics, we ourselves study, I'm paraphrasing, the AA steps, or we ourselves do the steps of AA. So meaning we are to be in this book doing the steps. So if I'm not living this principled lifestyle, this is always going to be my paycheck, whether I'm taking, and that's why Al-Anon is very close to love addiction. They actually are in bed together. Go deeper. So is codependency. And I'm going to go deep because I'm going to say it. I can say whatever I want. I've tapped power. I am a soul surgeon. And I'm going to go and say this, and you guys can, message me. Let's noodle it out one day. Come to my meeting. I'm going to dare to say the first addiction of everybody's is love. The love addiction. And then it turns into the love of alcohol and love of this. And of course, it says David G is my sponsor. He doesn't know it, has told me it's the disease of self. So this is my paycheck if I do not follow the 12 steps as directed in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. This chapter is written to us. So if anybody's in the Al-Anon fellowship and knows head office, please have someone reach out to me. I need to understand why this book is not literature approved in the room of Al-Anon. It's crazy, crazy train.
Yeah, thank you, Nikki. Is going through that paycheck of those things it's so interesting to ponder. Whether it's this is my reward for working or not working the program, or this is my reward for being, becoming a victim and having these things and being able to point my finger at somebody else, and that's such a crazy thing to think about and to recognize and to own. David, my question for you is somewhat similar. You talked about the anons in our lives, the loved ones of us addicts and alcoholics. We know they're not going to leave. until they do, but it's just proven over and over and over again. They're not going to actually follow through. You better do what you say. Talk to me a little bit more about that so that we as addicts can understand it and see it a little bit better, that we're walking all over those that we love, and also that those that we love can see it, that maybe they need to follow through on what they say.
Yeah, it's my lived experience that, threats of any kind really doesn't bother me too much at all. It's when you take action on those. And I can remember my wife, in 2019 when all of this came to the surface and I was that many years sober. And, she told me, she didn't say, I'm going to leave you, I'm this and that. She's like, there's some things you better do or else. And so she threw the ball back to me. And that's the difference for me and someone threatening to continuously leave, and when someone saying, hey, I'm willing to give you a chance, no matter how bad you have hurt me, I'm willing to give you a chance, but there's some things that you're going to have to do or else. And you know what? I knew that she meant business. And I remember coming back and saying, I'm willing to do anything that it takes to save this marriage. You tell me what I need to do. And one of the things was, you need to get help for the problem you have now. I've watched you recover in AA. Your story, the way that you recovered, and you can do it here, but there's some things you're going to have to do. Prior to that, no one ever said any of that to me. They just always said, you know what, David, we're leaving. Either you do this or else. And they would stay. And I'd think, well, let me try this a little more. And so I would go again and again, and never would they leave. They would stay around. They would continue to be sick. We may separate for just a little while, but we always come back together under the promise that I would do better. And then I'd be right back to my old behavior again. So in my experience, if, at least for a guy like me, if you're going to tell me something, you better follow through. But I see today that applies on both sides. If I tell you I'm going to do something, I need to be the man that follows through with that. My book says that God is the only answer for me. It just is. And, I ran around in the program for so many years, and I hear people still do it today saying, my mind is the problem. My mind is the problem. But the book doesn't say that. It says that the main problem centers in the mind. There's a big difference in the way that that's worded there. So if it centers in the mind for me, it centers in the mind for them as well. I just know that we've been able to find recovery together and have a very good life ever since. And so, I've had some hiccups along the way, but by God's grace, I've been forgiven. I've been pulled back into his love and mercy. And I'll just be forever grateful. So anyone out there that's struggling with this, I can tell say what you mean what you say. It makes all the difference to people like me. So thank you, Justin.
Yeah, and thank you, David. I'm so grateful once again that we've got Nikki here who can talk to us firsthand from the Anon perspective. I can just see the spouses of many people that I work with who are pretty much untreated in their Anonism, wanting to kill me for having this going on right now and having this conversation. If you out there listening are having that kind of response, I invite you to look inside and see, where am I to blame? You can't take your loved one's sins on yourself, but what can you do to help yourself and your own connection with God and your higher power? Anyways, quick takeaway. One for me that I have here is just that. I am grateful. My takeaway is that I'm grateful that my wife entered the rooms 8 years before I did and started addressing her own anonism 8 years before I started addressing my own addiction in the rooms of recovery. And that she very quickly found a healthy group of other women who said, no, you aren't going to be able to change him. You aren't in here to fix him. You're in here to fix you. And she took that seriously. And 8 years later, I recognized that. And that's my takeaway. And I'm so grateful for it. Nikki, what's your takeaway from our conversation today?
God, lots, as you just went through that and inviting people in again, because I always say this. I will take usually they've put it down a heroin, say they've put down the heroin and they're just dying in all the process addictions. I'd rather take someone like that than just an Anon, someone who just comes into Al-Anon, someone who just comes into Coda. And I would rather take a hardcore drug addict or whatever you're talking about, alcoholic, because this is a hard fellowship. They don't see the problem. So my takeaway is, if you're terrified, distracted, if you're weary, if you're exhausted, if your life is a futile effort, you need to look at self. You need to come in here, as Justin invites everybody to sit all the way down and get involved and take action in your life. Because my friend, where are you, Mr. Mark Francis? You always say, Nicole, everyone has the love life they want. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. They do. They really do. Like, and I take it even deeper. If you aren't happy with your life, don't look around, look in. Be responsible for self. This is radical. We got to wake people up. Important chapter, important lifestyle. I love you guys. I'm excited. I'm free today.
Thanks, Nikki. David, what's the takeaway for you?
Well, I think it would be the sentence there on 107, in the first full paragraph. Under these conditions, we naturally made mistakes. A mistake can be corrected. It absolutely can. I don't run around anymore saying, your part, my part, because if I've got a part, you got a part. I'm still using that as somewhat unknowingly as the blame game. So if you've naturally made mistakes, own up to them, the same as we have to do as alcoholics, addicts, in order to recover from this condition of mind, this self, but also the unseen defects. If you don't know what those are, find somebody that can take you through the process, who can help you to see what those are. And then step 6 and 7 becomes a whole new venue, whole new venture. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So I don't just go and say, okay, God, remove pride, self-esteem, ambition, security, any of these things. I want to look at what my actions are that lead up to those. And in the way that I go through inventory in the third column of resentments, we absolutely see what those are and our behaviors connected to them. So if you made a mistake, consider it a mistake. We can heal from that. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Nikki. To all of you out there, how I want to wrap this up today is with a statement that my wife made to me a few years back. As a black belt S&on, as somebody who lives her program very well. And I came to her and I had a question about something that I should have taken to my sponsor, to my higher power. And she paused and she said, Justin, I'm not your sponsor. I'm not your higher power. Go talk to them. And that's what I want to tell each of you listening out there. We're not your sponsor. We're not your higher power. We're grateful to be walking this path with you, but we are not those things. Go talk to them. They will help shine additional light in your own personal life. Keep coming back. This is amazing as we go into this, and it's very helpful. Work it. You are worth it.